Henry Cavill's training for Superman was long, painful, and brutal, but it changed him as a person, not only body but in mind as well, and let him truly become Superman. Henry Cavill felt enormous pressure to nail the role. Makes sense, seeing as Superman is probably the most famous superhero of all time and represents the best of mankind. Those are some pretty big boots to fill. Henry felt the most pressure during his harder workouts, where he'd be up in his head negotiating with himself to keep pushing, even though he really wanted to quit. But there was a single moment in his training that he feels truly let him become Superman. But before we get to that, we need some context. Henry Cavill was hot off the heels of Immortals when he started to prep for Man of Steel. And while he was definitely in great shape for Immortals, he had a lot of weight to pack on if he didn't want that blue spandex to be baggy. So Henry needed to hit the gym, and luckily for him, Zack Snyder, the director of Man of Steel, knew just the gym, Jim Jones. Mark Twain is the owner and operator of Jim Jones, and he's the man responsible for getting Gerard Butler and the rest of the Spartans their 8-packs for $300. And Mark had just 5 months to help Henry get Superman big. To make sure Henry was ready for his big shirtless scenes, they went through a big bulk and then a cut. During the first 2 months of training, they slowly increased the intensity of the workouts, eventually getting to the point where Henry would be training for 2.5 hours a day, and at the peak of the bulk, he was eating 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day. And by the end of the bulk, he was up 20 pounds. Then as shooting approached, they slowly cut back the calories to make sure Henry was nice and lean for those classic superhero shirtless scenes. While Henry was bulking, the diet was definitely less strict in terms of what he could eat, saying that he could have things like burgers because he was more focused on just packing on mass and getting the calories in. But then he really needed to improve the quality of the food and reel things in during the cut. Now there was one big thing that was non-negotiable during Henry's training. This is a quote from Mark Twain. It's like, hey guy, you want to be fucking Superman? Then do this one other thing, which might be the most important piece of it. So Mark made Henry Cavill get 9 to 10 hours of sleep every single night for the duration of the prep. This is because Mark understands that getting proper sleep is just as important as proper training and nutrition when it comes to muscle building. In fact, your testosterone and human growth hormone levels are at their highest while you're sleeping. In this study from 2011, they had 10 healthy young men get only 5 hours of sleep a night for a week. And they found that their testosterone levels dropped by 10 to 15%. And that's just a week. Imagine if you sleep poorly for months or even years. So sleep is the closest thing to natural steroids that we have. And if you're not getting enough of it, good luck building muscle. So how did they put all those calories and all that sleep to work? Well, this is the surprising part. Henry Cavill didn't do a conventional bodybuilding program like I expected when I started to research this video. See, even though Mark Twain is known for training actors, he actually spends most of his time training members of the army. And his training style definitely reflects this. Mark essentially had Henry Cavill doing CrossFit workouts. If you're not familiar with CrossFit workouts are essentially just circuits where you do a variety of different exercises in rapid succession with very little rest. Typically, you'll see a lot of Olympic weightlifting movements, bodyweight movements, gymnastic movements, and conventional strength movements like squats. These CrossFit style workouts are very challenging, especially on your cardiovascular system, and definitely will whip you into shape if you do them consistently, but we don't see a lot of actors utilizing them because of something called the interference effect. The interference effect describes a phenomenon that performing some form of cardio in combination with weightlifting reduces the strength and size adaptations that we'd get if we'd only lifted weights. So it pretty much just means if you're trying to get really jacked, doing a lot of conditioning with your weights is going to limit how much muscle you can build. So clearly for Man of Steel, they didn't just want Henry to get really big, but they also wanted him to be able to move and perform stunts without getting injured. And a more functional form of fitness like CrossFit is actually much better suited for this goal than bodybuilding. Because bodybuilders look great, but they aren't necessarily the most athletic. Now Henry's training was always changing, and they never did the same workout twice. Another thing that's a little bit unusual. So because of this, we don't have access to a full plan, but let's break down one of Henry's most intense workouts for Man of Steel. So first, you do 4 sets of a complex of deadlifts, bent over rows, hang cleans, front squats, push press, and back squats. And what a complex is, it pretty much just means you're performing all these exercises back to back without putting the bar down. Just like we talked about, this is a big challenge for your cardiovascular system and your overall endurance because these are all big full body movements. Then he did 10 sets of the following. First, he would do 3 reps of a back squat at 225 pounds. Then he would superset that with a sprint of 100 meters on a rowing machine. Again, this is absolutely brutal. This type of workout definitely teaches you how to perform under pressure because each set of back squats you go into, you'll still be fatigued from the last sprint. Then as a finisher, Henry would do 5 sets of push-ups to failure, resting only 30 seconds between each set. So as you can see, this whole workout is full body, just like many CrossFit workouts. The workout is based on getting in a large amount of volume on big compound movements, which will lead to increased cardiovascular capacity, muscle size, and overall athleticism. While I think this is a great program for members of the army or athletes, if your main main goal is to develop your physique, aka you want to build muscle and lose body fat, then this isn't the most optimal way. Also, this workout specifically is very advanced and definitely not for beginners. So if you're newer to working out and you're looking to build muscle, go check out my home workout guide once this video is over, because it's a really good way to get started, because you don't need any equipment and it's a great way to get started on building muscle. So let's talk about that moment of change that Henry Cavill felt that we talked about earlier. So it was during a set of heavy squats, just like the one in that workout, that Henry truly felt like he earned the right to be Superman. It was a cold winter's day on the Vancouver set of Man of Steel, the type of day where you just want to stay in bed, but that wasn't an option for Henry. He needed to train. He was on his final rep of his final set of front squats when his legs froze underneath the weight of the 305 pounds on his shoulders. He got pinned at the bottom of his squat and his knees started to cave in. Mark Twain, who was watching closely, was getting ready for Henry to drop the bar off his shoulders, but then something unexpected happened. Henry regained his footing. He drived his feet into the ground and he started to push. It was the hardest Mark had seen him push in the entire time they were training together. So it was a grind, but Henry put everything he had into that bar, and slowly but surely he got the weight up. Once he racked the weight, Henry stood there, surprised with himself, but he was also excited, feeling like he could take on anything. When speaking of that day in the gym, Mark says somehow he got his shit together. To see him do that, then walk around like he's on air, to believe in himself enough to try that hard, was one of the most impressive things that happened during the whole course of this process. Henry says that the importance of this day in the gym cannot be understated. If he could pin the process of becoming Superman to a single moment, this was probably it. If you guys like the video, you'll love my video on Chris Pratt's transformation and how he overcame some big obstacles along the way. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys there.